Jayo Mishnipad Paramahamsa Raja Katrayasta Tarsha the Shishimad is divine grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki is Kantandra Chaya Shrimot. Mishnipad Paramahamsa Raja Katrayasta Tarsha the Shishimad is divine grace. Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Mishnipad Paramahamsa Raja Katrayasta Tarsha the Shishimad is divine grace. Gopasuridas Abhiji Maharaj. Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki, Jagannath Babaji Maharaj ki, Ananta Kodi Vaishnavani ki, Amatoy Sahara Thakur ki, Prem Sagoshi Chaitanya Bhutan, Shivega. Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakanda Radha Kundi Giri Govardhan. Navadam ki, Navadam Maya Pudam ki, Puridam, Gangamaya ki, Yamunamaya, Ulasi Devi ki, Bhakti Devi ki, Samaveda Bhakti, Gaurav. All glories to these humble devotees. All glories to these humble devotees. All glories to these humble devotees. All glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga. So my name is Krishna Kripa Das. I'm a disciple of Satsrupa Das Goswami from Albany, New York, and I've been invited to speak on this topic.
But we can't hear you very well. If you could speak just a little louder. Sorry.
Okay, sure. Obeisances to you, Adi Purusha Guru. Cha Kripa Sindhu Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo.
Yes, Krishna Kripa, move a little closer to the device.
Okay. So
good.
We're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, chapter which is entitled Samam Bonam, chapter 86. Arjuna kidnaps Subhadra, and Krishna blesses his devotees. So we're in the part where Krishna is blessing his devotees. So we have several verses to do, 18 through 21. So we'll just read them, talk about the final one is the one with the purport. Narada Vamanotri, Narada Vamadevotri, Krishna Ramastita, Guni Aham Braspati, Kanvo Maitreyas, Chanya, Chanva, Nadaya. So he's traveling with all these sages. And he's visiting two famous devotees, Shrutadev and Baholashva, who are residents of Videha, and in particular Attila, which is a city. And these are the sages that are traveling. Among these sages were Narada, Vamadeva, Atri, Krishna Dvaipayana, Vyasa, Parshuram, Asita, Aruni, myself, Brahaspati, Hanva, Maitreya, and Shaivana. Tatratam Atya Anyantam Pora Dhanapata Kripa Upatashta Sargya Hasta Braha Suryam devotee. In every city and town the Lord passed along the way, O king. The people came forward to worship him with offerings of argya, water, in their hands, as if to worship the risen sun surrounded by planets. Report by the humble servants of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Here the sages traveling with Krishna on his chariot are likened to planets around the sun. So the planets, they reflect the light of the sun, and the sages, they reflect the light of the personality of Godhead in terms of his illuminating instructions. Anarta Danbakru Jangala Kankamatsya Panchala Kunti Madhukekaya Koshalarna Anye Chatanmukha Saroja Mudara Hasya Snigdekshanam Ripa Papurdrish Beer Narya. Men and women of Anarta Danba Kuru Jangala Kankamatsya Panchala Kunti Madhu Kekaya Koshala Arna and many other kingdoms drank with their eyes the nectarian beauty of Lord Krishna's lotus-like face, which was graced with generous smiles and affectionate glances. Okay, sounds very exciting. And finally, today's verse 21. Tebya Vikshana Nanasta Tamishra Jigba Tebya Vikshana Nanasta Tamishra Drigya Shemam Triloka Guru Arta Drisham Cha Yachan Shemam Triloka Guru Arta Drisham Cha Yachan Srinba Driganta Tavalam Yatsa Spa Yasho Shubhagnam Srinba Driganta Tavalam Spa Yasho Shubhagnam Gitam Saraya Nribi Agach Shanakar Videya Gitam Saraya Nribi Agach Shanakar Videham. So Tebya to them, Spa his, Vikshana by the glance. Vinasta destroyed, Hamisha, the darkness, Drigbya of whose eyes, Shemam, fearlessness, three Loka of the worlds, Guru, the spiritual master, Arta Drisham, spiritual vision, Cha and Yachan, bestowing Shinvan, hearing, Dik of the directions, Anta, the ends, Davalam, which purify, Spa his Yasha glories, Ashubha inauspiciousness, Gadam, which eradicate, Gitam sung, Shirai, by the demigods, Rabi, and by men. Agan, he came. He came. Shanakai, gradually, Videhan to the kingdom of Videha. Translation. Simply by glancing at those who came to see him, Lord Krishna, the spiritual master of the three worlds, delivered them from the blindness of materialism. As he thus endowed them with fearlessness and divine vision, he heard demigods and men singing his glories, which purify the entire universe and destroy all misfortune. Gradually, he reached Videha. Report. Srila Jiva Goswami raises the logical question of how the ordinary people along the path could even see the Lord, since not only were their eyes covered by ignorance, but the Lord's chariot was traveling faster than the wind. Applying the answer, Srila Jiva Goswami indicates that Lord Krishna's special glance of mercy empowered every one of them with the devotional purity required for entering into his association. Otherwise, it would have remained outside the scope of their power to see. As he himself states in his instructions to Uddhava, Bhaktyaham ekaya raya. I can be perceived only by devotion. Srimad Bhagavatam 11, 14, 21. By the grammatical rule of compound formation known as ekashesha, the term sta vikshana vinasta tamishra drigvya, although in its primary sense reflected as a masculine noun, may be understood in this context as referring to both men and women. Nagana Timarandasya Gyananjana Shlakaya Chakshuram Yena Hasmai Shri Gurveda Namo Vishnupadaya Krishnapastai Budale Shmit Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachani Nirvase Shunivana Pastatadesh Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Veda Gadadhar Shri Sani Gaur Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Rama. So this is very exciting. We're hearing the glories of the glance of Krishna, or the audience of Krishna, and we're hearing about who's actually qualified to perceive Krishna, which are all very important things to us. First thing that was striking to me is the extreme beauty of the Lord, which was described in the previous verse. That these people in the different kingdoms drank with their eyes the nectarian beauty of Lord Krishna's lotus-like face, which was graced with generous smiles and affectionate glances. So that reminded me of how the gopis, they were glorifying the beauty of Krishna, saying that Krishna's face was so beautiful that they wanted to curse the creator Brahma for creating eyes that blink, because it was intolerable for them that they could not appreciate Krishna's beauty for that fraction of a second when their eyes were blinking. So that's a very amazing statement, because I've seen many beautiful men and women in our lives, but we never saw anybody so beautiful that we cursed the blinking of our eyebrows, because our eyelashes, because it kept us from seeing the person for that long. So that's both the glorification of Krishna's amazing beauty and also the gopis' amazing appreciation of it, because so many different people have seen so many devotees have seen Lord Krishna's beauty, but who has described it like that? They can't tolerate the blinking of their eyes. So let's go through. I thought of different verses about the audience of the Lord and who's qualified to see the Lord. I wanted to go through them. When Srila Prabhupada would give classes, he liked to quote many verses, and he would say that in spiritual circles, that whenever you make a point, you're supposed to refer to the Shastra. And I proofread the Back to Godhead magazine, and the Prabhupada article, which is based on a Prabhupada lecture, has so many quotes. It's the most challenging one to proofread because you have to look them all up and check the diacritics. But it really reminds you that Prabhupada thought that's the proper way to give a class, to make sure you have many quotes. Archita Prabhu was telling me that Surya Prabhu, who worked for the BBT many years, had a formula. It had shloks, jokes, and quotes to make a good class. So, at any rate, one verse that came to my mind was one that Prabhupada quotes a lot. It's not actually from the main scriptures we study. It's from the Mundaka Upanishad. Nayam Atma Pravachena Labdyo Namedasa Nabahuna Shrutena Yam Evasa Shrinate Tena Labias Tasyasa Atma Vinvenuti Tanam Swam. The Supreme Lord is not obtained by expert explanations, by vast intelligence, or even by much hearing. He is obtained only by one whom he himself chooses. To such a person, he manifests his own form. Sorry for the noise in the background. That is the G train, which comes under this building every once in a while. So that is relevant to this verse in purport, where it's being described that these otherwise unqualified people, they were given the qualifications to see Krishna by his glance. He was endowing them with the ability to appreciate his beauty and his divinity, and just by his glance. And he was choosing to do that. He was bestowing his mercy by revealing the reality of his form and divinity. There's another verse that came to mind. It's in the prayers of Bhishma Dev, who talked about the power of the audience of the Lord. Here we're hearing how all these people became purified because of the Lord's presence. So Bhishma was there on the battle fighting the Pandavas, and as he was about to die, he was remembering Arjuna and his friendly relationship with Krishna. And he said this verse, "At the moment of death, let my ultimate attraction be to Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. I concentrate my mind upon Arjuna's chariot driver, who stood with a whip in his right hand and a bridle rope in his left, and who was very careful to give protection to Arjuna's chariot by all means. Those who saw him from the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained their original forms after death." So these people, the Kauravas, were completely unqualified. They tried to poison Bhima. They tried to burn the Pandavas alive. They tried to strip Draupadi naked in a government assembly. They were like the lowest class of people, and their allies were similarly fixed in the mode of ignorance. But because they died in the presence of Krishna, they became so purified, they actually attained their svarup, their original spiritual form after death. That talks about, that's also relevant to this topic of people being purified by the presence of the Lord. Got another verse somewhere here. Oh yeah. This is a verse that there's one Swami named Mahavishnu Goswami, not the Mahavishnu Swami from England, but this Mahavishnu Goswami is from Gujarat. He was a disciple of Shivaram Swami, and he had many disciples, and he loved the Bhagavatam. And he taught us this Bhagavatam verse, which talks about 6 items of devotional service. And one of the one that's mentioned here that's not mentioned in the list of 9 that we're all familiar with is Ikshanam, which is audience. Yad Kirtanam, Yad Smaranam, Yad Ikshanam, Yad Bandhanam, Yad Shravanam, Yad Arhanam, Okasya Sayo, Vidunoti, Palmasham, Kasmai Subhadra, Spavase Namo Namaha. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the auspicious Lord Sri Krishna, about whom the glorification, remembrances, audience, prayers, hearing, and worship can at once cleanse the effects of all sins of the performer. That's Srimad Bhagavatam 2.4, 15. So it has the word ikshanam, which is the same word which is shown up in these last two verses, 20 and 21, describing the audience of the Lord. So let's see, what else did I want to say about that? I was looking up references to the glance of the Lord, and there's another nice section where Prabhupada's talking about the glance of the Lord. Dwarka is certainly more important than the heavenly planets because whoever has been favored with the smiling glance of the Lord shall never come back again to this rotten earth, which is certified by the Lord himself as a place of misery. So here, blessing all these people in the different towns and kingdoms he's going through with his smiling glance, they're all becoming liberated and elevated to go back home, back to God. So let's see. There's other different points that are there in the verse itself. It weren't mentioned really in the purport, but are important, I think. By seeing the people, he endowed them with fearlessness and divine vision. So fearlessness actually is a very important divine quality. And when Krishna lists the divine qualities in the beginning of chapter 16, the divine and demoniac nature, the first one he lists is Abhayam. And of course, Srila Prabhupada was named Abhay, and later by his guru, Abhay Charanaravinda, fearless because of having taken shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. So fearlessness comes up in an important verse in the Bhagavatam, because there's the first verse, the Dharma for this age of Kali, the chanting of the holy name, is mentioned throughout the Bhagavatam, but the first place the chanting of the holy name is mentioned is 1114. Apana sangsachim goram yanama vivasho pranan tasa yo vimucheta tadbebeti svayambayam. Living entities entangled in the complicated meshes of birth and death can be freed immediately, even by unconsciously chanting the holy name of Krishna, who is feared by fear personified. So in other words, one can become completely fearless by chanting the holy name. So here, these people are receiving the darshan of the Lord, and they're becoming fearless. And we ourselves, by hearing the Lord in the form of his holy name, we can become fearless. We can attain that divine quality when Krishna appears before us in the form of divine sound. Let's see. So also it said that he endowed them with divine vision. And you might remember that that Krishna also endows Arjuna with divine vision. There's a nice little section here. Let me call it up here in the chapter 11. Because in chapter 10, Krishna describes his elaborate glories. Right? It's called he gives many examples of where to see him, like the light of the sun and the moon, the solar omen, or the different things, like he's of the Daitya demons, he's the devoted Prahlad, of the serpents, he's Ananta, of the warriors, he's Kartikeya. He gives so many examples of how to see his opulence. And then in chapter 11, Arjuna asks to actually see this form, see how Krishna is present everywhere. So let me just call it up here. Chapter 11. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare. He says, Krishna says to Arjuna, but you cannot see me with your present eyes. How's it go? Now, tumam shakshu drastum, anena ivasva chakshushaha, divyam dadami tat chakshus pashyame yogamaishram. You cannot see me with your present eyes, therefore I give you divine eyes. Behold my mystic eyes. So basically, in order to see Krishna, we have to be given divine vision, and out of his mercy, Krishna gives divine vision. And who does he give this divine vision to? That's mentioned in the purport, where the disciples of Prabhupada quote the Uddhava Gita, where Krishna says, I can only be known by devotion. And that's something that Prabhupada would make the point of often by quoting a verse in the Bhagavad Gita, 1855. And he would, which talks about that I can only be known as I am, bhakti mama bijanati yavan yasyasmi tatvata tato mam tato gyava vishate tadanantram. I can only be known as I am by devotional service. And when you are in full consciousness of me by such devotion, you can enter into the spiritual kingdom. Some people think, because Krishna talks about karma yoga, he talks about jnana yoga, he talks about jnana yoga, and he talks about bhakti yoga, that it's sort of like a menu and you can choose whichever one you want. But actually, as he mentioned in that verse I just quoted from the 18th chapter, he says, I can only be known as I am by bhakti yoga. And Prabhupada would quote that verse many, many times. If you do a search on the folio and you type in 1855, you'll see that he quoted it many, many, many times. He quoted it 551 times. Now that's serious. There's very few things he's quoted 551 times. That verse about how, and that's only like one of 3 verses, and the other 2 are even more emphatic, because they qualify the bhakti by the word ananyaya, by unalloyed. In particular, the most famous of the other 2 is 1154, after Krishna's just revealed all his opulence in amazing detail. Bhaktya tvanaya shaka ahame bhavador janadras yatum drastum jatatena praveshtam sha mantapa. My dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can be understood. Can I be understood as I am standing before you, and can thus be seen directly? Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. So there's a few thoughts about the darshan of the Lord, the purifying power of the darshan of the Lord, and how the Lord can only be attained by one who he chooses because of that person's bhakti or devotion. So I wanted to end early, so there's time for questions and comments, because I don't know that I'll have time after the darshan, because I'm still catching up on my japa and my sleep from yesterday. Anybody have any questions or comments or thoughts related to the verses or purports for class?
Hare Krishna, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, very nice.
Okay. Thank you so much. We're a splendid, perfect class. Your spiritual master is empowering you. When I think about the purifying effect of Krishna's glance, it mentioned here today, which struck me. A lot of times they talk about his beautiful eyes and his bright smile and his curly hair or different features of his dress and ornaments. But one thing mentioned today that struck me was like affectionate glance. That Krishna was, that we noticed that Krishna looking at us with affection. Even a dog can tell if you're coming at him aggressively or if you're afraid of him or if you're, welcoming him. And when Dhruva Maharaj was, performing austerities, trying to get to see Krishna so he could ask him for a big kingdom, then when Krishna appeared before him, Dhruva was like overwhelmed by seeing Krishna. And probably that I can understand, and Srila Prabhupada does tell us this, is that when you see somebody who's looking at you with affection, that's the most beautiful thing. That touches the heart, that somebody's reaching out to you. And you mentioned Surya. As far as I know, he's distributing books in Hawaii now. You know Surya? You mentioned him?
Oh,
Surya
Asura.
Prabhu?
Sura.
Surya, yeah, Surya. So Surya, I remember 1974, he had already memorized every single verse in the Bhagavad Gita,
Wow.
Sanskrit and English. And I was like, who is this guy?
Wow.
Just to hear about a person like that, he said
Wow.
that whenever we speak something, a statement in class, we must back it up with some verse from scripture. What does it call it? Pramana? Is that the word?
Yeah, evidence. Yeah.
What? Yeah. There's a great scholarly Sanskrit scholar devotee here in the building, Pradyumna, and he always said, "What is the pramana?" When you say anything, he always wants to know, remind you that don't just make definitive statements without backing them up from what Krishna says, what Prabhupada says, to verify our statement. Anyway, that's all. I'm sorry to talk so much. Srila Prabhupada, thank you very much. Wonderful class.
When you're talking about the glance of the Lord, it reminded me how sometimes it's described as the sidelong glance.
Sidelong glance, yeah.
If you do a search on sidelong glance, it comes up 70 times. And the first time it talks about Kardama Muni and how he was not emaciated, for the Lord had cast his affectionate sidelong glance upon him, and he had also heard the nectar flowing from the moon-like words of the Lord. Yeah. And that's just the first one. I wonder what the second one is like.
So interesting to see being nourished, purified, uplifted, enlivened, just by the way Krishna looks at us.
Yeah, and then the song sung by Lord Shiva, the Lord is super excellently beautiful on account of his open and merciful smile and his sidelong glance on his devotees.
When the deity greeting comes, we try to remember that we're there to offer ourselves to Krishna so he can look at us. And that, of course, we're looking at, usually when you see somebody on the stage, the audience is looking at the person on the stage, but we come before the Radha Muralidhar and we say, Lord, I'm here. I make mistakes. I'm not very advanced, but, please, I'm here for you. Please accept me. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, and it's so important that we remember that the Lord is anxious to see us at Mangalarti. It's not that we're just going to see the Lord, but the Lord is, eager to see all his servants there. And yeah. it's a relationship. People, they enjoy seeing each other, right? Actually, it used to be when somebody was regularly seeing, having a relationship with someone of the opposite sex, they would use the word, "Oh, he's seeing her."
Ah, he's seeing her.
So, yeah, seeing is.
And the Shastra says, Premanjana Bhakti Vinodti, that when your eyes are anointed with the salve of love, then you can see Krishna. And we can't really see him by our endeavor, but he reveals himself to us. Like, this is very interesting. You're talking about that today, that Krishna shows himself to us. He can do that. And that famous song, I really want to see you, Lord. We may have the desire, but then, like the sun, you can't point a flashlight toward the east or a candle and try to get to see the sun. But when the sun comes, it's there. So the sun, Krishna reveals himself when he chooses to. He has the prerogative not to reveal himself to anyone and everyone. And to some people, he's not there. He doesn't exist because he hides. He doesn't force himself on us, but he's willing and able to reveal himself.
Top of it, Prabhu was giving a class, and he says the theist, he can see God everywhere, and the atheist can see God nowhere. Because he's reciprocal. And there's a leela where Prabhupada's talking to a person, and he was seeing. So Krishna says, that I'm the light of the sun and the moon. So we've seen the light of the sun and the moon. He says, I'm the taste of water. So we've drank water. So we can see these Krishna in these different ways, and the person, the woman, was listening to this, they're saying that it was difficult for her to understand that, and then Prabhupada asked her, "Do you want to see Krishna, or do you want to see God?" And she actually didn't say, and that's why she couldn't see, because Krishna's right here and explaining how he's right here, and if you're not seeing, that means that's because you don't want to see. So she was sort of like, Prabhupada caught her, by asking that question. Do you want to see? Yeah.
So funny.
So basically, we're engaged in what's called sadhana bhakti, where we perform these different items of devotional service, which purify us, and put us in a state in which Krishna will feel inclined to reveal himself to us. They endear us to Krishna. It's said that in the Nectar of Devotion, there's the 64 qualities of Krishna listed, and one of them is grateful, and there's this quote where Krishna is saying, "When I remember how Draupadi cried out, 'Hey Krishna,' in helplessness to me, just that her uttering my name, I feel more and more indebted whenever I think, of her doing that." And then Prabhupada says in the purport that we can't imagine how indebted the Lord feels to someone who's always chanting his name. Feels obliged to reciprocate.
There's something in the chat there. Somebody's trying to say something. It says chat 1.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to do
you want to read it, Adipusha Prabhu?
What?
Do you want to read?
I'll try. It says, Hare Krishna, please forgive me for leaving early today. Oh,
Okay, but there's no question in the chat.
I thought there might be a question or a comment.
I have a question, Krishna Kripa Prabhu. Wonderful class, first of all. Wonderful devotee. Thank you. If you mentioned so wonderfully how Krishna can only be known by, as he is, by a devotee, by devotional service.
Yeah.
But there's so much evil in this world. Why can't Krishna show himself, not as he is, but some kind of ferocious form to just get those demoniac people to stop those senseless wars and all this evil? Why can't, not as he is, but maybe in some ferocious way, why can't he just interfere and show himself, maybe universal form, to freak them out and get them to stop?
Well, of course, he showed the universal form there on the battlefield, but didn't get people to stop. Yeah,
You may have an idea that Krishna could do it better, but he's already doing it. We just have to appreciate it. Every single leaf is just a miracle. The sun and the moon and the stars and the mountains and the rivers and the ocean and the forest. They're so beautiful. The creation is Krishna is reflecting the creator. Like what St. Francis saw the beauty of nature and he was understanding the greatness of the Lord. So he is showing, but there's a causeless unwillingness, Prabhupada says. Like Prabhu was saying, that one person didn't want to see Krishna. So that's why they can't see Krishna.
and in the basically, human beings are meant to take advantage of the Shastra, and we learn from the Shastra even the most basic idea, which is even like not even Bhagavad Dharma, but the law of karma. If anyone understands the law of karma, they wouldn't engage in any violence because they'd be understanding that the violence would come back to them. So the people are so dull, they can't even understand the law of karma. They think they can kill, the Palestinians think it's all right to massacre some Israelis, and then Israeli army people think it's all right to blow up some Palestinians, and none of them realize that all those acts of violence are going to come back on them, and they're not going to find peace and happiness in life, by whimsically killing innocent people. It's like they're just setting themselves up to suffer more and more. So,
Okay, here's the deity darshan coming.
oh, okay.
Thank you. Perfect answer. Thank
I'm
you.
gonna leave. Now you have opportunities to see the beautiful sideline glance of Radha Muralidhar, and I was just there yesterday appreciating their divine beauty. So
Thank you, Krishna Kripa Prabhu. Yeah,
thank
we're
you so
going to
much.
see the Lord right this minute. Thank you.
Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Shri Radha
Jai.
Muralidhar
Krishna
ki.
Kripa Prabhu ki jai. Thank you, Prabhu. Okay, darshan time. Let's see the Lord. Let's be seen by the Lord. And for that, we need some more cameras. Makeup or no makeup. See, Joshua is not wearing any makeup and he's keeping his camera on. That's surrender.
Wanna come? We invite you to
Thank you, Adipusha Prabhu. Okay, welcome to the Afterglow. Would anyone like to speak? Ask a question, share a reflection. It's Monday morning. We're very excited to start off our week as an offering to Krishna. Amen.
Yes, I wanted to share something in connection to what Adi Prusha had shared before about Dhruva Maharaj seeing Krishna. I remember reading those verses and it's the detail of that scene where Dhruva Maharaj is seeing Krishna after coming out of this. He opens his eyes after long meditation of meditating on the form of the Lord, and he sees him right in front of him when he opens his eyes. So he's like, what's happening? And he gets awkward and he doesn't know how to pay obeisances to the Lord. And he just feels like, oh my God, so he has all these emotions going on internally. He wants to do it, but he doesn't know how to do it. How should he act? And at that moment, Lord sees what's happening within him and puts the whole Veda. He puts his hand on his forehead and then he receives the entire Vedas. And I remember feeling so moved by that, and I just couldn't move on for a little bit to next verses because just the compassion of the Lord already seeing and hearing and knowing what's in our hearts and giving so much love and compassion to the devotees was just so amazing to me.
Thank you, Min. Min is living Srimad Bhagavatam. She's not just reading it, she's internalizing it and reflecting it back to us. Thank you, Min. Krishna Kumari sent in a heart, her big heart. Thank you, Krishna Kumari. That counts as a comment. Hare Krishna. Okay, so we are wishing you a wonderful week. Come again tomorrow. We love you. We need you. Anandi, can you unmute yourself and say Hare Krishna? Anandi? There she is.
Hare Krishna.
Perfect. Thank you, Anandi. Thank you. We love you. We miss you. We hope
Love
you
you
feel
too.
better.
Thank you.
Thank you for your example. Hare Krishna.